I appreciate everyone being here today. We're going to talk about state permitting for the state of Kansas, Division of Water Resources. If you have any questions, please wait till the end and we will address those then. My name is Janelle Phillips. I work for the Kansas Department of Agriculture, Division of Water Resources for the Water Structures Program. There are two state laws that the Division of Water Resources upholds, KSA 82A 301 obstructions in the streams, and KSA 24-126, the levee law. We will talk about each of these in detail and what requires a permit for each of these. So let's start with KSA 82A 301 et al. It is written that a construction or modifier or repair a dam or work in a designated stream. So these laws have specific language about what a dam is and what a designated stream is. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what a dam is per state law. So state of Kansas has 6,403 dams in the state of Kansas that are regulated, second most in the country. So we're second in the race. I believe Texas is first. 6,028 are state regulated. And what I mean by state regulated is that they meet this definition. So a dam per state law is a structure that is for impounding water and is 25 feet or greater in height. And then there's a big or, 6 feet or greater in height, and has a volume of 50 or more acre feet behind it. So if a structure meets either one of these definitions, it is defined as a dam in the state of Kansas and is subject to the regulations of the Division of Water Resources. So there's a difference between maintenance of a dam and repair of a dam. A maintenance item is removing the woody vegetation that grows on a dam, seeding, replenishing riprap, removing the debris from the spillway. That does not require a permit from DWR. That is just considered maintenance. It's a good idea to do those kinds of things and make sure that your dam is working well. Types of repairs that do require a permit are pipe replacements, slip line of pipes, embankment modification. So if you're going to raise the embankment of the dam or lower it, or modifying the auxiliary spillway, what we also call the emergency spillway, so that the water flows out in an emergency more effectively. So what I tell people first is if you're going to build a dam, mess with a dam, first hire an engineer. The reason I say hire an engineer is because these things can be very complicated and require a lot of work. Second, get a determination from DWR and the U.S. Corps of Engineers about whether permitting is required. It is always good to ask first, then ask later, especially with the U.S. Corps of Engineers. The second thing you need to be aware of when it comes to dams is that the water behind it, impounding it for the state of Kansas, requires a water appropriations permit. Kansas is one of the most specific when it comes to water appropriations. Anything that has 15 acre feet of storage, so you're holding 15 acre feet of water or more behind the impoundment, or you're going to supplement it with a groundwater well or a stream pump, you're going to need a permit to do that. So there are a couple field offices that you need to talk to. If you're in the eastern part of our state, the Topeka field office is who you need to talk to first. The Stockton office is our western north part of our state. The very west south is the Garden City office. The center is Stafford. So you need to talk to them about whether a water appropriation permit would be required for the water that you're planning to use. So let's now move on to work in a designated stream. This is a picture of Lawrence, and this is the Bowersock Dam if you're trying to get orientated. So what is a designated stream? Per Kansas statute 82A 301, it's a natural or man-made channel that drains a watershed area that it goes with this map. So the eastern part of our state is 1 square mile or more of drainage that would go to that location. In the middle of our state, it's 2 or more square miles of drainage. And the very west part of our state is 3 square miles or more of drainage to that area. This is based on the rain calculations of our area. So this is where that came from. It wasn't just arbitrary. We actually did some studies about the amount of drainage and water that is done by participation. So how do I know how to do that? One way is the USGS Stream Stats. You can put in the location of where you're going to build whatever you're going to build by lat and long, and it will calculate the drainage area for you. I will caution you that the western part of our state, it gets a little tricky, but it is a good tool to have. If you're in doubt at all, you may contact the Division Water Resources Office or myself, and we will do a determination for you, no problem at all. So, what requires a permit through the Designated Stream Act? It's within the channel of the designated stream, so within that bank to bank. If you're going to work in a designated channel between bank and bank, you are going to need a permit. So, you construct or modify a stream obstruction, modify the stream channel, or remove aggregate, gravel, sand, that kind of thing, or dredge within the bank lines. All require permitting prior to doing any kind of work. So let's talk about stream obstructions. Those could be culverts, bridges, low water crossings, pipeline utility crossings, temporary crossings. That's a big one that people kind of mess up. If you're going to temporarily cross a stream that's designated, it still requires a permit from our office for as long as it's going to be there. So please don't just think that since it's only going to be there for a month that you don't need a permit. You will need a permit for that in a designated stream. Modifying a stream channel. So what we mean by modifying a stream channel is if you're going to straighten a stream, if you're going to clean out a stream, so you're going to remove some accumulated sediment or make sure that the bank is all cleared of stones or something like that. If you're going to widen a stream, especially maybe upstream or downstream on a culvert that's not working effectively, or if you're going to do stream bank stabilization or revetment, if you're going to put something on the banks of the river or lay that bank of that stream back a little bit so that it doesn't erode as fast, that's going to require a permit from our office. So aggregate removal, what do I mean by aggregate removal? Like the picture above, if you're going to remove the sand or gravel for roads or for sale, so our friends at the state or with cities or counties, if you're going to remove some gravel to be used on your roads, you're going to need to get a permit if that stream drainage area is 50 square miles or more, or you're harvesting more than 100 cubic yards per year. Again, if you're not sure, just give us a call. We'll do a determination from you. Second, the picture up here is from Lyon County. The lower picture is from the Missouri River for sand dredging. So what do I need to get a permit? So the first thing you need to do is download our application form from our website. That's a sample on the side there. You need to fill in all the owner contact information. That's very important. We need to know who to talk to with any questions we have on the application. We'll need a location map. You may know where it is in the great state of Kansas, but we don't. So a picture from a Google map with a circle around it or some kind of determination on there. Plans, we'll need a plan view and a cross-section view, which we'll talk about here shortly. Sorry. Specifications, a benchmark. We'll need the appropriate fee you have to pay for the permit. Hydraulic analysis, copies of any easements or owner permission. So if you're, say, a city or a county and you're doing some work outside of your right of way, you're going to need copies of those easements. We're going to need a slope stability analysis for slopes steeper than 2 to 1. And a licensed engineer is required for any stream that has a mean annual flow greater than 100 cubic feet per second. Those are your larger streams. Usually they have the word river after them. And just as a cautionary note, any fill more than 100 feet in a floodplain will require a floodplain fill permit too. We'll talk about that here shortly. So this is a location map. This is Scott Boulevard Bridge, a location map that was given to us. So you can use Google Maps, County GIS, etc. Just show us where the project's going to be located. Sometimes there are several bridges in a location, and so we need to know which one you're talking about. So these are example plans. This is the plan view or top view. So again, Scott Boulevard Bridge. This is like a bird's eye view of the bridge. It shows the contours. It shows where the bridge is going to be. It shows the right of way. It shows us enough information to know how you're going to build the bridge. A cross-section view is like cutting through cake. This is the side view if I were standing in the creek looking upstream. So it tells me how far you're going to bury the culvert, what the top of the road elevation will be, etc., etc. So this is a example of a channel change. So here's the plan view or top side view. This shows me how long the channel change will be and where it is. There's a cross-section view showing me what the cross-section or the side, if I were to stand in the stream and look upstream, what the channel will look like when it's done. And then below is a profile or the slope of the stream once it's done. This is an example of a gravel removal plan. We require a plat or a plan view showing where your benchmark locations are and where you're going to be removing gravel, and then cross sections of where how much gravel you will be removing as you go. This is very helpful for us if we do inspections to know if you're removing the right gravel bar or not. So in construction specifications, you can use KDOT, county, and city specifications. If we can get to them on the website, you just have to put them on the plan saying that the material, such as on the side of on one side, and it just basically shows how the project will be built. Over here is an example of how they talked about how they're going to do it, and they just said that how they were going to remove the fire. We just need to know how you're going to do the project. It doesn't have to be the entire booklet. It just has to be, this is what we're going to use. Other items. Hydraulic analysis. It shows the impact of the stream obstruction. The key is that you're not going to harm someone else. So if you put in a new culvert or a new bridge, that you're not going to back up water into somebody else's property. Owner permissions or easements. If you're going to do any work on anybody else's property and you don't own it or control it, then you're going to need a owner permission or an easement. And if any other impact of the work happens on somebody else's property, then you're going to need owner permission to do that, have that impact on them. Stability analysis, again, for any channel side slopes, steeper than 2 to 1. And again, you're going to need an engineer for the Kansas, Arkansas, and Missouri rivers for sure. And then anything for a mean annual flow greater than 100 CFS. Again, that's usually a stream that has the word river after it, usually is the 100 CFS. You can email your applications to kva.waterstructures@ks.gov. All we ask is that you mention how you're going to make payment. So there is a condition in there about a general permit. A general permit is if you're going to do minimal amount of work, and then you can get a general permit from our office. It's $100 fee, and it's a quick turnaround from us. So what qualifies for general permit is a bridge culvert replacement. If a bridge or culvert replacement, the cross-sectional area is the same or larger, has limited channel width, and the road grade doesn't change for your culvert replacement, then you can qualify for a general permit. Sand or gravel removal, if the drainage area is less than 50 square miles and is limited to 100 cubic yards per year, or greater than 50 square miles, sorry, and is limited to 100 cubic yards per year, then you can get a general permit. Pipeline crossings by open trench. HDD or directional boring does not require any state permitting, but if you're going to do by open trench and the drainage area is less than 50 square miles, then you don't need a permit as long as the pipeline is 5 feet below the stream bed. If the drainage area is greater than 50 square miles, then you will need a general permit. We require that it's 7 feet below the stream bed for the Kansas, Arkansas, and Missouri River, or 5 feet below on any other stream. That's the pipe, the top of the pipe to the stream bed. That's the requirement. So the general permit application, you include the initial permit application that we showed before with all the names and contact information. And then you include this one, which is the 2-196 worksheet. If the road is not raised by more than a foot, then you please make sure that the road is not raised more than a foot to do this general permit. You fill it out, and if the drainage area is more than 4 square miles in zone A, so zone 1, which is the eastern part, then you will need to have a location map plan for your road cross section. If it's not, then you just send in that application. Zone 2, 6 square miles or more, and zone 3, which is the western part of our state, is 8 square miles or more. So if you are say you're in zone 1 and the drainage area is 2 square miles and you know you need a permit and it's a general permit, all you have to do is send us the location, send us the application and this 2-996 no plans, and we can get you a permit within 7 days. So, oops. So these are the questions on there. The existing opening size, proposed opening size. We need this all filled out the best you can because we need to know this information. So there are some exceptions, exemptions. Of course there are. There's laws. There's always an exemption. A permit is not required if the stream obstruction serves less than 25 feet along the stream length. So if you look at our bridge down below, if the width of the bridge or the travel path of the bridge is less than 25 feet and it blocks less than 5% of the channel, so I always tell people if it goes from bank to bank with nothing in between, then that means it blocks less than 5%, then it would not require a permit from our office. So like pedestrian bridges here, low water crossings without culverts, boat ramps, intake and outfall structures for storms sewers, all could be minor project exemptions. What we request is that you obtain a determination prior to construction just to make sure that it does comply with a minor stream obstruction exemption. There's another exemption for rural projects. A permit is not required if a stream obstruction is not a dam. Now remember that definition. A dam is 25 feet or more, or 6 feet taller and holds back 50 acre feet of water. So if it doesn't meet that definition, then it's not a dam. It's in an unincorporated area. It has a drainage area less than 5 square miles, and everything, including the water impounded, is 300 feet from an adjacent property line, and it's not in a floodplain. So those are all things that need to be met to make that rural project exemption. So it's not just one, it's all of them. Typical examples include private roadway culverts or small ponds. Again, we request that you do get a determination from DWR prior to construction. So now we're going to turn to KSA 24-126, construction of a levee or placement of floodplain fill within a floodplain. So let's talk about levees. This is a picture of downtown Manhattan in 1950. So I just thought it was kind of a cool picture. So a levee is parallel to the water course or parallel follows the stream. So Class A levee is a failure of a levee that will damage farm buildings and limited to agricultural grounds. So that's what we consider a Class A levee. Class B levee is failure of a levee will damage isolated homes and secondary highways. And a Class C levee is failure will cause loss of life or serious damage. A floodplain fill is fill within a floodplain. So floodplains are defined by FEMA. So if it's on a FEMA floodplain map, then that's a floodplain. It's material placed in the floodplain at average height of greater than 1 foot. So my picture right there is way more than a foot. So that would be floodplain fill. Some examples are building pads, wetlands, or duck marshes, our aggregate and soil stockpiles are all floodplain fill. So these are some pictures, some stockpiles for an aggregate producer, a wetland, and I think that's Reno County, and then a building pad. So let's talk about building pads. The top of the pad must be 1 foot above the base flood elevation. The lowest floor, including the basement, must be 1 foot above the base flood elevation. So that's very important that the lowest floor of the building, including the basement, must be 1 foot above the base flood as a minimum. Some of our other counties and cities have a higher freeboard requirement, but this is the state of Kansas's requirement. And a letter of map revision based on fill or Lomar F is required for the building. Unconsolidated material storage stockpiles. So if you have material stockpiles in a floodplain, then no permit is required if they were there before 1929, and that's really hard to prove anymore. They were there before the firm map, so that can be a little bit easier, but it's still a little tough. And the sand and gravel site was there before 2006. So we use Google Maps to kind of determine that. If you weren't removing gravel or you didn't have the sand pit there before 2006, then you would have to need a permit. And it has to meet all of the following. It has to be outside the floodway. It doesn't require permits if it meets all the following. It's outside the floodway. It's there for less than 270 days and will be restored within 90 days. This is as just DWR's requirement. This is not the county or city's requirement. This is just our requirement. So we're willing to work with people if it's going to be outside the floodway, it's there for less than 270 days, and it's going to be restored, meaning that all the stockpile will be removed. It does not obstruct the stream flow, redirect the stream flow, block any culverts or channels, or cause any hydraulic problem. So if you put a stockpile in and it's outside the floodway, it's less than 270 days, but it starts to push water onto your neighbor or blocks a road, culvert, or something like that, we would still require it to either get a permit or be removed. So how do I know if I'm in a floodplain? FEMA Map Service Center has a great thing. You can put in your address or longitude, latitude, and it will show you the map that's currently effective there. How do I know if what the BFE is for Zone A? Our floodplain group has a great website. It's called the Kansas Base Flood Elevation Portal. You create an account, then you can put in your address in the map, and you can get a BFE determination in a Zone A floodplain. You can also request for my uh, fellow civil engineers, you can also request the effective model for hydraulic analysis through this site. So floodplain fill applications, what do I need for that? Same application form. So we don't have a different one. We have the same one for stream obstructions and floodplain fills. We need a location map. We need a plan view and cross-section view, which we'll talk about in a minute. We'll need specifications, benchmark, appropriate fee, slope stability analysis for 3-to-1 grader, hydraulic analysis. If you're in a floodway, we'll need a floodway no-rise analysis. If you're somewhere else, we'll probably need a HEC-RAS analysis to show the impact. And if a licensed engineer is required, if you're placing fill in a floodway, the height of the fill is greater than 4 feet and is greater than 3,200 cubic yards, or it's a Class C levee. Those are all requirements for a licensed engineer. Let's talk about our location map. This is a location map for, I believe, a house that was being built. So you can see, we know the streets, we know where it is. There's a nice little arrow. We can figure out where you're going to put the fill. So this is the grading plan. It needs to have contours. It needs to have proposed contours and existing contours so that we can see what's going on there. You can see here the cross section shows us the existing grade and the proposed grade and the finished floor elevation. So we can see if you meet that freeboard requirement. Specifications can tell us how the dirt will be compacted, what kind of dirt you're going to be using, etc. So other items, hydraulic analysis shows the impact of the fill. So it's required for all applications except for those in a fringe fill. We'll need owner permission or easements for any work on property that is not controlled by you, any impact of the work. So if you put in a floodplain fill and you know that it's going to impact the adjacent neighbor, you need their permission to put that in. Slope stability analysis. If the fill slide slopes are steeper than 3-to-1, you're going to need to show us, i.e., if you're putting in a retaining wall, you're going to need to show us that that retaining wall is going to be stable. And again, you're going to need an engineer to stamp your drawings if it's a Class C levee, that the fills are higher than 4 feet and more than 3,200 cubic feet, and the fill's in a floodway. You can email our applications to kda.waterstructures@ks.gov. Just tell us how you want to make payment. So let's talk about the projects that have both, that have floodplain fill and a stream obstruction. So like this one, you can see this is a bridge replacement, but you can also see that the existing ground and the proposed grade is more than a foot. So it would be both. It would be a it would be a stream obstruction, and it would be a floodplain. So you would take the higher of the two fees. In this case, it would be the floodplain fill that would be the higher fee. So you don't pay both fees, you just pay the higher fee when it has two things. It has a stream obstruction and a floodplain fill. So I get this question a lot. Does everybody do this? Yes. According to the law, any person, partnership, association, corporation, agency, or political subdivision of the state government has to get a permit. That includes KDOT. That includes the city and county. That includes the levy district, a township, the city councilman, the county supervisor, wind turbines, etc., all require to get a permit before they do work in a floodplain or they do work in a designated street. There's always an exception. I knew all of you were waiting for this. There's always an exception. The only exception that we are aware of is the railroads. There's a U.S. law that says the jurisdiction of the rails is under the Surface Transportation Board and is exempt from state and local permitting within its existing right of way. So if they're messing with their existing rail, they do not need a permit. If they are creating a new rail outside of their existing right of way, they will need a state and local permit. So why does things take so long sometimes to get a permit? Well, there's this thing called the Environmental Coordination Act. 82A 325 and 327 says all the applications that the Division of Water Resources receives has to go through a mandatory 30-day review. And in that 30-day review, 7 agencies, the Kansas Department of Wildlife, Kansas Forest Service, State Biological Survey, Kansas Department of Health and Environment, State Historical Society, and Kansas Department of Agriculture Division of Conservation, and the State Corporation Commission have 30 days to review your application for environmental impacts. So when we get your application, we turn it over to the Environmental Coordination Act. That does not mean that we don't review it in that 30 days. We will start a review. We will look at it. We will start asking questions while that 30-day clock is ticking. So right now, the Division of Water Resources is tracking at about an average of 36 days from the day an application arrives to the day it turns around. Now, there's an exception for that. Remember those general permits where you're just replacing culvert with the same or a little bit bigger? That one only has to go through 7 days. That is why we can turn them around so quickly. So, I know I went through a lot of information really quickly. There's more information on our website. You go to agricultural.ks.gov, you go to Division Programs, go to the Division of Water Resources, and stream and floodplain permits. You can look there and you can see what you need. You can also call us for state permit determinations. Please give me a call. I'm available most days. For floodplain ordinances within your own city or county, please call Cheyenne Sun Eagle. She is more familiar with your own ordinance than I am. For FEMA questions, unfortunately, Cheyenne is also your point of contact for that. I don't have very many FEMA I only work on the state side of the law, not the FEMA side. And if you want to obtain a HECRAS model, please use that BFE portal that we talked about. And with that, my name again is Janelle Phillips. I work for the Water Structures Program for the Division of Water Resources. This is my email. This is my office phone number, and this is my cell. You're welcome to use either one to get a hold of me. And with
Great.
that, do we have any questions?
Right. If anyone has questions, feel free to come off mute and ask. I didn't see anything in the chat, but in the meantime, I'm launching a poll just to ask if you would like a certificate. Okay. Yes, this recording will be posted to the website. All right, I will go ahead and end that poll. And yeah, well, we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you all. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good day, everyone.